Okay, so introducing our new unit, evaluating expressions, is substituting a numerical value for a variable, for a given variable. So for these first three questions, they want us to substitute x for 5 for x and 2 for y. Anytime we substitute a variable with a numerical value, we need to include parentheses around that value. So I'm going to literally rewrite this expression, but instead of using the variables, I'm going to substitute those variables with numerical values. So for example, 10x. So I have 10, and since I'm going to substitute 5 for x, I'm going to put parentheses 5 minus, because that is a subtraction sign, 4 parentheses, what I'm going to substitute y with is 2. Okay, now you can definitely do this all in your head, or you can trust the calculator to do it for you. So if I did it in my head, it would be 10 times 5 is 50, 4 times 2 is 8, 50 minus 8 would be, I know this question, 42. But if I want to rely on my calculator, okay, I turn my calculator on, and I just literally retype this expression as I've written it. So I do 10 parentheses 5, close parentheses, minus 4, open parentheses, 2, close parentheses. And I hit enter, and I get 42. So you can always use your calculator to check your work if you want to check your mental math. So I'm going to do the same thing for number 2, but this time it's just a different expression, but I'm using the same values for x and y. So 9 parentheses 5 plus 15 parentheses 2, substituting x and y with the correct values. So I can do this in my head, or I can trust the calculator. 9 parentheses 5 plus 15 parentheses 2 as I've written it, and my answer is 75. Okay, next, different expression, but I'm going to use the same x and y values. So 3 parentheses 5 minus 10 parentheses 2. I type that in my calculator. 3 parentheses 5 minus 10 parentheses 2. Hit enter, and I get negative 5. If you want to check the calculator's work, 3 times 5 is 15. 10 times 2 is 20. 15 minus 20 is negative 5. Okay, same thing, but this time they've changed my values for x and y. They want me to substitute 8 for x and 12 for y. Now, this is where it gets tricky, and you're really going to have to rely on that calculator. As long as you substitute correctly, you shouldn't have a problem, okay? So this time, they want me to substitute x with 8. Remember, anytime you substitute, use parentheses. So it's parentheses 8 for x, and the squared goes outside the parentheses, okay? Minus 12. There's no y on this one, which is totally fine. That means I do not use it, and I'm going to type this in. So parentheses 8 squared. You can do x squared, which is near the 7, or you can do x raised to the power of 2. X squared is only if I know it is an exponent of 2. Minus 12, and my answer is 52. Okay. This one's a little longer, but luckily we have the calculator to help us out. So I'm going to substitute 5 parentheses. For x, I'm going to put 8 plus 2 parentheses. For y, I'm going to put 12 minus is in the, I tell my kids minus middle. If it's in the middle, it's minus. If it's in front of a value at the beginning, then it's a negative. 2 parentheses 8. So it's all about how you substitute. Make sure you do it correctly, because then you can trust the calculator to do the rest for you. But you have to write it correctly in order to get the correct value in your calculator. Okay? Sorry. Now, let's say I did put a negative there, guys. You have to know the difference between your subtraction and your negative symbol, because if you put a negative instead of subtraction, you get a completely different answer. So know the difference. So my actual answer is 48. Okay, one more on this row. This time they want me to substitute, and it's not always going to be in order. If you look, they gave it to me as xy here, but on my problem it's yx. So make sure you're careful and you know which number goes where. So I'm going to substitute 12 for y. So parentheses for the y, squared goes outside, minus 10 parentheses 8. And I trust the calculator. Parentheses 12, oops, squared, which is x squared, minus 10 parentheses 8, 64. Okay, third row, which includes more fractions. So we did basic, then we introduced exponents. Now we're going to introduce fractions. So this is why it's important you know the calculator basics that was in the video on Google Classroom. Okay, so they want me to substitute 6 for x and 10 for y. So here's my expression right here. I have 1/2 parentheses x, I'm going to substitute 6, minus 1/2 y, I'm going to substitute 10. Okay. Now to insert a fraction, remember it is alpha y equals. Okay. Alpha y equals. Oops. Sorry. Alpha y equals. Now I want the first one, so I can hit 1 or I can hit enter. Totally up to you. All right, so 1/2, 1, and I have to hit the right cursor in order, or the down cursor to move the value down to the denominator, 2. Now, if I put 6 right there, it's not going to be correct. I have to hit the right arrow to get out of the fraction. Then I put parentheses 6 minus, I need another fraction, so alpha y, 1. And I need 1/2, so I'm going to go 1, forgot. Yeah. Hit the right arrow. Parentheses 10. If you write it, well, however you write it, you need to type it in the calculator like that. You've got to trust it. And then so my value is -2. Okay. I consider this one big fraction, so I'll go over how to type that in the calculator. But let's substitute first. So on the numerator, I have 5 parentheses 6 minus 2 parentheses 10 all over a denominator of 5. Okay. So consider this one big fraction. So I'm going to type in a fraction first. So that's alpha y, 1. And I'm going to type this entire numerator in the numerator in my calculator. So I'm going to do 5 parentheses 6 minus 2 parentheses 10. I'm not done though, because I have my denominator, so I need to go down and type in 5. Okay? And then you hit the right arrow to get out of it. So don't freak out when you see this kind of problem. The calculator does magical work. So make sure if you write it, type it in like you wrote it. And then you hit enter, and I get a value of 2. Okay? One more, a big O fraction and exponent. So let's combine those two skills. So I have y, I'm going to substitute with 10 squared minus 6, substitute x with 6 squared, all over the denominator of 2. Okay, so big O fraction, alpha y, 1. Okay, on top I'm going to type in how I wrote it. Parentheses 10 squared is x squared minus parentheses 6 squared all over 2. Okay, and my answer is 32. Okay, last section. This one, it's like, oh, that's super, super easy. But my values this time are fractions. So this is what makes this section a little trickier. So let's practice it. So they want me to substitute 1/2 for x and 1/3 for y. So x parentheses 1/2 plus parentheses 1/3. So don't freak out when you see a fraction. You treat it the same way. Whatever I substitute with, I just put it in parentheses. So I have parentheses, but I have to put a fraction. So alpha y, 1, 1/2 parentheses plus another fraction in parentheses. Don't forget to put the parentheses. 1/3. Hit enter. And it gives me a fraction. You're going to have to trust the fractions, or you're going to have to go back to your 6th and 7th grade skills, change the denominators to common denominators, and you know that the rest of it. So it's up to you if you want to trust the calculator or not. Number 11, okay, substitute x and y with the values given. So I have 2 parentheses. For x, I'm going to put 1/2 plus 3 parentheses 1/3. Okay, remember I only put parentheses if it was a variable to begin with, okay? I don't put parentheses if the number was given to me to start with, like the 2 and the 3. So then I type it in my calculator, 2 parentheses fraction 1/2 parentheses plus 3 parentheses fraction 1/3. Sorry if it was out of screen. Okay, and my value is 2. You're like, after all of that, a simple 2. Last but not least, and not tricky, but you have to really include the parentheses here, is if the fraction is raised to an exponent. Again, just replace x with parentheses 1/2, square it on the outside, plus parentheses y, which is 1/3, square it, and you type it in just like you see it, how you wrote it. So if you write it wrong, you get it wrong, but if you write it correctly, then you're fine. So I do parentheses, fraction, whoops, don't go as fast as me. Oh my goodness, parentheses, fraction, go slow in these first couple of weeks, parentheses, squared, don't forget that, plus parentheses, another fraction, 1/3, parentheses, squared. And now if you notice, you're like, Miss, I typed in those parentheses and they disappeared on me. So the calculator will do its own functions for you, but as long as you typed it in how you wrote it, and you just have to trust the calculator for the rest of it, your answer is 13/36.